What's going on, guys? We are back with episode 7 of the 0 to 3K series, where I will be documenting my journey trying to pug completely solo on a brand new class and spec as a healer that I have never played before. To check out any episodes that you may have missed from this series, there is a playlist you can click in the top right hand corner of your screen. If you guys haven't already, then be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. If you want to see some more of my content, then be sure to check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/Newmen_TV or click the link in the description for some WoW live streams of keys and mythic raiding. Time for yet another vault. Now that we have our 4Ps, I think, honestly, surprisingly, I think I want a belt or a necklace. Since those are the two main slots that could be the biggest item level upgrades. Our rings, I do have rings in my bag that I can use to upgrade these for free. So yeah, maybe a trinket could be good to get some free crest upgrades. So let's see what we get. Okay, so we did get nothing too good. So yeah, looking at these, we're not going to take this cloak because it's from Raid Finder. The one-hander we're not going to take since it doesn't really help us out since we have a two-hander. And this ring we could take to save crests. It would save me a few crests. It would be aspect crests, I believe, actually, which I don't really think is worth it overall. Since we do still need a few sockets, I think that will be our choice, mainly because of the fact that we do have a ring that we can socket that we're most likely going to use for the rest of this challenge, and bracers. But next time, I might actually take those free upgrades because our belt is veteran track. We're definitely not socketing that. Yeah, so I think the safe bet here is to just take the sockets, and I'm hoping that we'll be done 3 vault slots this week. We'll see how it goes, but hopefully that's the plan if I have the time. And hopefully we can get something better from our vault next time. And as for our key, we got a +9 Azure Vault. Time to do some upgrades. We got some crests last week doing Mythic Plus, so I decided to spend them on pants since they are myth track, although it was very close between gloves or pants. But in the end, since our pants are myth track, they are less likely to get replaced. I also wanted to finish upgrading our weapon. Now that it's fully maxed out, that will definitely be a big power boost for us. And like I mentioned, we have 2 hero track rings that we can use to upgrade both of our rings to that level for free. And the other upgrade I did was to my necklace since it was free and would only cost us some flight stones. We can also pick up some gems that we will need for our new sockets. I went with the same mastery crit gems, if anybody was wondering. And I also needed to stock up on some more consumables, which were the verse files and some runes. This week I was a bit limited on time, so my plan beforehand was to get 8 keys done, but I shifted this since my tyrannical week scores were doing pretty well when compared to fortified. So I decided to try for 4 keys, which gave us some trouble, so be sure to stick around to see what happened. Our first key was a +10 Brackenhide Hollow. This key was pretty good overall. This week was also the return of the weekly quest for doing 4 mythic dungeons and receiving 2 bullions. To be honest, I did accept this quest and eventually turn it in at the end of the week, but overall, I don't really think there's much reason to put any real importance on this because of the fact that we basically have every item that we could want. I could buy a new trinket if anyone wants to see me play with something that they personally find very fun or just want to see some gameplay of. But overall, I don't even know if we'll be spending any more bullions, but who knows. We did a small first pull so that we would have lust for the first boss, but of course while trying to get a kick, I accidentally fat fingered Lust on a trash
Kick.
pack. Other than that though, we had a good run and overall pretty fun key. Few things of note in terms of gameplay are to make sure that I was preparing for the bursting with these early packs, since a lot of them have considerable amount of mobs, mainly before the first boss. I also wanted to try to dispel the most likely person to die to the bleed on the first boss, and also to try to fit in as much damage as I possibly could on the packs following the first boss. Other than the totem that gets spawned from the Rot Singer, there isn't too much that can put your group in danger. We did make it to Treemouth and then decided to pull Stink Breath, who has been a common mini boss to skip this season, but on Tyrannica Week and this key level, it seemed fine to fight him in my opinion. We actually had no deaths as we approached the final boss, until our hunter got a little
Frontal.
too greedy and was hit by the first frontal from the boss. We got a battle res out and finished the boss for 22 score. This is actually our first portal of the series because we managed to time a +10, which will make traveling significantly easier. And I actually got the ring that was in our vault, but on the hero track instead of myth track. The next key was a
Frontal.
+10 Ulon. The most apparent issues we had in this key were the deaths during boss fights. With this dungeon having 5 bosses, it is very important
Kick.
to not lose any DPS early in a boss fight, as it can extend the fight or make it impossible in some cases.
Frontal.
I think we played a bit sloppy, myself included, and that was definitely reflected in our death counter and timer. Even with all this in mind, we actually would have probably timed this key if it wasn't for a bug. We had to waste 2.5 minutes because after we killed Emberon, I was stuck in combat and I couldn't res our DH or Warlock. Problem was that they also weren't able to release, so eventually our Demon Hunter relogged, and that seemed to fix the issue. This led to us having to play riskier and riskier as the key went on to try to make up for the lost time, which would eventually lead to our downfall. I don't know if this is a common bug, but I think I have seen this a few times before. Not sure if there's any quick way to fix it other than seemingly relogging, but overall pretty frustrating since it was basically out of our control. I'm not sure what happened here, but as I did the skip to reach the final boss, our Demon Hunter used Immolation Aura and pulled the 2 mobs that we were trying to skip. During this, our rogue goes and does the throw dagger at the boss, who came over and killed 3 of us. I'm not sure what the thinking was here. I don't think it would have been faster to wipe since the run back is so long, so maybe it was a troll play by the rogue. Overall, I'm not too sure why we decided to pull those mobs or pull the boss. Regardless, we pulled the boss and depleted the key, but still got 26 score. The next key was rough. We had disconnects, lag, poor defensive usage, and overall felt pretty frustrated with how it ended. We were doing well until we entered the final boss platform. My first mistake was my fire breath. I had a feeling that this might hit the mini boss and pull it, but I decided to try my luck, which was a very bad idea. Caused 6 deaths, but hey, we still have 7 minutes. Plenty of time for the last boss. I'm sure this is definitely not considered the hardest boss this season by any means, but for some reason I seem to be struggling with it basically more than any other boss. To summarize what happened, we ended up wiping to this boss 5 times. The Inferno Core is basically the main culprit, and like I've said many times before, I feel like on this fight, it just does way too much damage. As a preservation evoker, feels like without DPS actively using defensives really well, which is pretty hard to find in your average pug at a +10, there's basically nothing I can really do to stop players from dying, at least at my current skill level. I try my best to have heals ready and see if I can maybe give them some defensives and try to spread out the damage, but our druid was lagging pretty badly and he even DC'd during one pull. and eventually we decided to call it quits. This was a really
Targeted.
large time waste for me, which kind of led to us doing significantly less keys this week, but we push forward and we will get past this. Next, I joined a +9 Noou offensive, which was a lot more successful. This group was pretty solid overall. We had some good kicks, defensives, and being pretty aware of my range limitation. The storm boss claimed one victim, but nothing we couldn't recover from. A little trick that some players might not know, or Noou, is that after killing the 4 packs that have a soul caster in them on the little hills, you can actually start the RP for the third boss. You still need some more percent. The healer is the perfect person to do this, since you can fly over near the boss so that the roleplay will start, and your group will lose minimal damage, and it usually doesn't take you long enough for anyone to be in any real danger. After killing the third boss, we flew to the last one, who I opted to save Lust for, and to use during the intermission at 50%. Pretty glad I made this choice, since even with it, the hunter and I still died due to a lack of crowd control on the ads. We two-chested the key for 12 score and a trinket that I have genuinely never heard of. I wanted to try to do another ruby since it would give us a lot of score. This one didn't even make it to Blaze Hoof, and I have no idea why, to be honest. We ran into some disconnecting issues. For this, there had been 2 deaths. It was going really well. Our mage was doing less damage than the tank, but we were still making very good time. Our
Frontal.
hunter seemingly disconnects here, and then dies to the frontal from the fire dragon, and then our druid disconnects as well. Within 30 seconds of them disconnecting, our mage leaves. Just like that. I whispered him after the
Frontal.
key, asking why he left. He mentioned that he knew that they were friends, so I'm not sure. I understand leavers are very common, but I definitely think that was a bit unfair for everyone involved to just leave like that within 30 seconds. We
Frontal.
had waited 2 to 3 minutes and they still hadn't returned, then sure, but that wasn't the case here. There's a pretty good chance they just disconnected and maybe lived on the same internet and would have joined within a few minutes had we just waited. Our final key of the week, since we had already
Defensive.
finished Brackenhide, Ulon, and Noou, was a +9 Neltheris.
Charge.
This key, I tried my best to be more aware of my positioning on Magma Tusk, since it would mean that I would be less likely to get hit by the lava waves, instead of trying to position to try to save as much space as possible from the charge, but it was leading to me putting myself in a much riskier positioning, which led to a few deaths in previous runs. Once again, we had no issues with Chargath as long as I had empowered spells ready to heal up my group when we had to deal with these spears. I had a terrifying flashback. Our elemental shaman disconnected. Luckily, he was back in time for Forge Master, who did put lots of pressure on me, but we still only had 1 death at the final boss, who raised our deaths to 3. There's so many keys with either disconnections or failed bosses. I just joined any group I could find, so this key only actually gave us 3 score, but at least it'll give us our vault slots, right? Well, maybe not actually. So I'm not sure if I was so tired by this point that I was going crazy or what, but I joined an LFR to get our 3rd vault slot, and when I looked at my vault for the next week, it said I had only done 3 keys. I assume this is a bug, but even after relogging, it wasn't fixed. This isn't nearly as big of a deal as it would have been earlier in the season, because we only need 1 more socket, which is going to go into our belt, which we can buy even if the game only gives us our 2 vault slots from the Mythic Plus and from Raid. This is still really annoying if it turns out to be true that it is somehow bugged, because it means that we will only get 1 Myth Track slot item next week, which could be massive if we get a necklace or a belt. But hopefully this isn't the case. Regardless, until I find out, I'm going to end off today's episode. Thank you guys for watching, there's any content you guys want to see other than pugging challenges, be sure to let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.